Tonight, the government moves to shut down a committee investigation into the SNC-Lavalin affair.
The only person left to resign now is Justin Trudeau himself.
This as the top bureaucrat in the country resigns after defending the Prime Minister's office. How the government is banking on tomorrow's budget to move past it all.
Families in Christchurch wait to bury those killed in the mosque attacks, but were there warning signs?
It was disturbing to say the least. They were most definitely Islamophobic.
We're in New Zealand again tonight, tracking the white supremacy movement here and back home.
The devastating impact of a cyclone in southern Africa. Days after the storm, a first look at the trail of destruction. This is The National.
He has been a civil servant for almost 38 years, but today Michael Wernick gained another distinction, becoming the fourth person on Parliament Hill to call it quits over the SNC-Lavalin affair. Jody Wilson-Raybould was the first. That happened on February 12th. 6 days later, it was Gerald Butts, the Prime Minister's right-hand man, principal secretary. Then, again, exactly 2 weeks ago, Jane Philpott bowed out as Treasury Board president. Now the country's top civil servant is leaving too. As Katie Simpson tells us, he says this is the only way forward.
Michael Wernick carried out one of his last public acts as Canada's top public servant. Hours after presiding over a swearing-in ceremony for a new cabinet minister, the clerk of the Privy Council unexpectedly announced his retirement. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Wernick blamed recent events for his decision, adding, "There is no path for me to have a relationship of mutual trust and respect with the opposition."
I want to thank Michael Wernick for his extraordinary service to Canada over many, many decades.
The Prime Minister's office says Wernick's decision was his alone, and it comes as his reputation is in question.
The clerk then made the comment about how it is not good for the Prime Minister and his Attorney General to be at loggerheads.
The former Attorney General named Wernick as a key figure in the SNC-Lavalin affair. Jody Wilson-Raybould says she faced inappropriate pressure and veiled threats after she refused to grant a deferred prosecution agreement to end the criminal case against the engineering firm.
So I can tell you with complete assurance that my view of those conversations is that they were within the boundaries of what's lawful and appropriate.
While he denied wrongdoing, the opposition said Wernick was too compromised to continue, especially since he was supposed to lead the team of independent bureaucrats that will warn Canadians about interference in the upcoming federal election.
There was questions that were definitely that came to mind after his testimony, given the nature of his testimony, given the self-serving nature of it and the partisan nature of it.
Now we have an Attorney General who has resigned, a Treasury Board President who has resigned, a top advisor to the Prime Minister who has resigned, and now the head of the public service itself has stepped down. The only person left to resign now is Justin Trudeau himself, whose corrupt government no longer has the confidence of Canadians.
Okay, Katie, obviously the opposition's been trying to get Jody Wilson-Raybould back in front of the Justice Committee, but we are learning tonight that that is not going to happen.
Nope, the Liberals have a majority on that committee, and in a letter tonight make it clear they've heard enough about the SNC-Lavalin affair. In the letter, the Liberals point out tomorrow makes 11 meetings over 5 weeks, suggesting it's time to move on, and Canadians can judge the facts for themselves. One Conservative MP says the letter reads like it was written by hostages at the request of their PMO captors. The opposition is vowing to fight the decision, but options are limited. Rosie.
Okay, Katie Simpson in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
So the Justice Committee investigation pretty much over, the Privy Council clerk resigning, and that's not even all that happened on this story today. As David Cochrane explains, the government spent today tying up loose ends before Budget Day tomorrow.
Good to see everyone today.
His third cabinet shuffle in 3 months was the least surprising part of the day.
I, Joyce Murray.
The new president of the Treasury Board, the minister who runs the public service, promoted just hours before the top public servant resigned. And then another surprise on what is an SNC-Lavalin laundry day. trying to clean things up before the budget.
I'm therefore announcing that the Honourable Anne McClellan will serve as special advisor.
A former Liberal Deputy Prime Minister, McClellan will review the dual role of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, as well as the operations of Cabinet.
She is uniquely suited for this role.
Former Liberal Cabinet Minister Anne McClellan. Maybe Sheila Copps wasn't available. Unbelievable, Mr. Speaker.
None of the changes changed the attack.
Let the former Attorney General speak.
Will the Prime Minister let her speak and allow the former AG to speak her whole truth?
The NDP even brought reinforcements, their new leader's first question period.
Why is this Prime Minister so afraid to launch a public inquiry?
Under attack for helping a corporate giant, the Liberals are poised to drop a budget that helps ordinary Canadians.
Lower taxes for the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%.
Sources say the budget will promise to bring high-speed internet to every Canadian by 2030, a suite of measures to promote adult skills training, measures to make home ownership more affordable, steps towards national pharmacare. It's a hard pivot back to the Liberals' middle-class agenda, and they hope a hard pivot away from SNC-Lavalin.
What matters to people on the ground is strong economy and job security.
Well, you have to remember, we lowered taxes for 9 million Canadians.
That's the conversation the Liberals want to have.
This is like a 5-alarm dumpster fire of political cronyism, incompetence, and now obstruction.
The opposition just won't let them have it. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
The SNC-Lavalin issue aside, this budget is, of course, about Canada's economy. Senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong takes us through where things stand now and how that could play into the political decisions in the budget.
The economy is undoubtedly in a rough patch. The remedy is the hard part, especially when the economy is sending conflicting signals about where it's headed. The pessimistic case is easy to make. Canadian GDP is down. The energy sector continues to struggle. Global growth has slowed. Tariffs and trade wars linger, and it just feels like things are getting worse, not better. But economists say we may already be through the worst of this rough patch.
We've got very strong labor markets. We've got a lifting of trade uncertainty. We think we're going to start seeing a real pickup in business investment into 2019. And we've got improving commodity prices across the board, including for oil.
But the fact remains the government will be tempted to spend. All those new jobs have added a ton of unexpected money to government coffers.
The windfall, we think, is somewhere around $10 billion, or maybe a bit less than that this year, and carrying over into next year, probably another $7 billion.
So the question becomes what to spend the money on. In a lot of ways, Canada's back to a two-track economy, the energy economy and the non-energy economy. And what may help one, policies that would boost the Canadian dollar, say, might hurt the other. Budgets are all about choices. Tomorrow's will be no different. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
As soon as the budget is delivered, we will be here ready to help break it all down, from the price tags to the politics.
But we will continue to stand up for jobs.
3 budgets and Canadians are still waiting for housing.
What's in it, what's not, and what it all means for you. Starting at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, after the federal budget lockup, we'll dig into all of it on CBC Television, CBC News Network, and online. I'll be hosting live from the West Block on Parliament Hill, bringing you the details, reaction, and analysis. And that continues right here, of course, on the National, starting at 9 p.m. on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on CBC TV, with a special, of course, at issue. Also in Ottawa today, there were expressions of sorrow and support over the shooting in New Zealand. But the Prime Minister went beyond condolences to calling out hate and calling for political action against it. Here's Justin Trudeau for the record.
Anti-immigrant hatred, right-wing extremism, white nationalism, neo-Nazi terrorism. These groups are alive in Canada, a nation that, under the leadership of Laurier and Diefenbaker and my father, has long championed the protection of minorities and promoted our diversity as our greatest strength. People come out to vigils in the hundreds, in the thousands, and plead for action. and we fall short. Our communities set an example that our leaders consistently fail to follow. After tragedies like these, politicians often say that it's not a time to talk politics, but that instead we should grieve and support the affected communities. I think that's a farce, Mr. Speaker. I think this is exactly the time to talk politics. Ultimately, Mr. Speaker, will we do the right thing? Or will we bury our heads in the sand today, only to bury them in our hands later? The tragedy in New Zealand is, sadly, yet another example of just how far we've gone astray. But we cannot let the lessons of those 50 deaths go unlearned.
Adrian, tonight the House of Commons here unanimously adopted a motion condemning the attack and promised to confront hatred, Islamophobia, and white supremacy.
Well, there are lots of lingering questions here in New Zealand about that, Rosie, about extreme views, about whether danger was hiding in plain sight. We'll dig into that a little bit later, but first, there are likely big changes ahead here for people who own firearms, and that's because the attacks here in the mosque led to a complete rethink of how guns are legislated in this country. Not that long ago, the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, addressed Parliament again to mourn the victims, to praise the first responders, but crucially as well to say that the rules will change dramatically and they will change soon.
As I've already said, Mr. Speaker, our gun laws will change. Cabinet met yesterday and made in-principle decisions 72 hours after the attack. Before we meet again next Monday, these decisions will be announced.
The Prime Minister is expected to return to Christchurch on Wednesday to meet victims, families, and first responders, some of whom obviously are still struggling. And today, Brenton Tarrant's former lawyer says despite obvious questions about his mental state, Tarrant appears to be of sound mind, at least legally speaking.
He was lucid, and he seemed to appreciate what he was facing and why he was there.
Meanwhile, the memorials for his victims continue here in New Zealand and around the world, from Hong Kong to Pakistan, from Turkey to Russia to Australia. Of course, it's going to take time for the people affected to process all of this, the grief, the powerlessness, the anger, of course. And remember, people just didn't lose their loved ones. Many families lost their breadwinners. And even though the government has said that it will do its best to financially support them, as Brian Stewart reports, that doesn't make it hurt any less, and it certainly doesn't bring them back.
It's a grim and unprecedented operation for the city of Christchurch. Dozens of grave plots dug side by side for a ceremony that's planned for later in the week.
Once the burial is done, there will be a lot for you.
Latifa Lobby is the imam from the Linwood Mosque, the second site to be attacked, and today still a crime scene. He will be at the burial, but is far too traumatized to lead the service.
If you see my eyes, I couldn't have enough sleep till now. I sleep and wake up. It's my first time in my life to see such things. First time.
For paramedics who are used to responding to traumatic situations, what they found when they arrived at the mosques was incomparable and terrifying.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. And that's a scene that you don't forget. It was literally flowing off terracotta tiles.
In all, 50 died. Among those gunned down, Junaid Ismail, a father of 3 and Zahed's twin brother.
I still wish to have Junaid back to us so we can bury him, and that has not had any further advancements at all.
He's frustrated because he thinks it's taking too long for the coroner to return his brother's body. Junaid ran this convenience store and Zahed is trying to keep it running. Outside, tributes line the sidewalk.
I spent most of the day yesterday down here and just seeing people come in all day and just instantly come in and give hugs.
Customers and friends who all knew Junaid have also been pitching in.
When I came down first, I helped them kind of rearrange some of the flowers and could just feel the tears for the first time kind of welling in my eyes. And it made it so much more, real that what had actually happened.
The attack, which targeted one religious group, has become a tragedy that's touched everyone. Leaders across different faiths and cultures, including the Maori, have come together to try and bless the mosques, places of worship that have become the sites of so much heartbreak.
Okay, so Briar, this police investigation continues, but also we're learning how quickly the government is acting on gun control, really quickly. What are some of the changes that?
Well, the Prime Minister announced that Cabinet has agreed to reforms, and she didn't release the exact details. Those are going to come later on Monday. But it's almost certainly going to include some kind of ban on semi-automatic weapons. And New Zealand already has a system in place where people need to get a background check. There needs to be reference checks, for instance. However, there is no registry. And that's one of the issues because it's hard to keep statistics on the number of guns out there when people don't have to register them. So that's something that could happen. And I should mention, too, that the government is launching an inquiry looking at what police, customs officials, security services knew about the accused shooter, and they're looking for any red flags that they might have missed along the way.
Fair enough, Briar. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
We don't yet know the names of all 50 people who died, but we are getting small glimpses of the lives lost, and we want to take a look at a few of them, like Dr. Haroon Mahmoud, an economics teacher at Canterbury College in Christchurch. He leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Khalid Mustafa came to New Zealand with his family last year from Syria to escape violence exactly like this. He died along with one of his teenage sons at the Al Noor Mosque. Another son is recovering from a gunshot wound. And Atta Alayan was a popular member of the local tech industry and a goalkeeper for New Zealand's indoor national soccer team. Alayan is survived by his wife and daughter. We'll have more from Christchurch about the roots of the attack here and how people are learning that even New Zealand is not immune to this terrible kind of extremism. That's in about 15 minutes.
With the New Zealand attack still fresh on people's minds, a shooting on public transit in the Netherlands today had authorities there turning up the terror threat to its highest level. While those authorities were treating the attack as terrorism, they say they have not established a firm motive. But with 3 people dead in Utrecht and others in critical condition tonight, it's clear the city and the country are on edge. The CBC's Thomas Dagla has more from the scene.
A fugitive sent Dutch police on an all-day manhunt. They took every precaution, with no telling where the suspect could be hiding or what weapons he may be carrying. The search started here, at a streetcar station mid-morning. The sound of gunshots stopped the train, and the shooter took off, leaving the dead and injured behind.
I heard a lot of screaming. I heard a lot of honks from the cars. Then all of a sudden sirens and hell broke loose.
Police released this image of the suspect, 37-year-old Turkish-born Gökmen Tanish, urging anyone seeing him to call right away, but not to approach him. Investigators scoured the scene, unsure of the attacker's motive.
Our forensic guys are working here, and we've got a lot of people who were in the tram. All together, we tried to get a picture of what had happened here exactly.
Authorities urged everyone to stay inside. They temporarily raised the terror threat to its highest level, fearing another attack could be imminent.
De eerste berichten geven hoe dan ook aanleiding.
Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte said the shooting led to disbelief and disgust, adding the violence struck innocent people. Late in the day, police announced they had arrested the suspect, but were still trying to determine the motive. One working theory is that the shooting started as a family dispute, but investigators haven't ruled out terrorism.
The forensic investigation continues here at the scene tonight. This attack has sent shockwaves through this country at a time when terrorism is back on the minds of many. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Utrecht, the Netherlands.
Here are some of the other stories we're watching tonight.
Insane. The amount of water.
Melting snow and heavy rains continue to wreak havoc in parts of the U.S. Midwest following historic flooding over the weekend that left at least 3 people dead. A statewide emergency was declared in Nebraska and Iowa, where hundreds of people are out of their homes. Warner Brothers chief executive Kevin Tsujihara stepped down today amid a sexual misconduct investigation. It's alleged he offered to promote the career of a young actress in exchange for sex, but his lawyer said he had no direct role in hiring that actress.
Still to come on The National, what did authorities miss in advance of the attacks on the mosques?
Plus, the alarming growth of hate groups in Canada and what can be done about them.
But next, a cyclone slams southern Africa. Massive flooding, entire cities under siege. Officials fear the scale of destruction is unimaginable. In Southeast Africa tonight, the president of Mozambique says that more than 1,000 people are feared dead in the wake of a massive cyclone, which is what hurricanes are called there. The Category 2 storm made landfall on Thursday near the central port city of Beira. Officials say as much as 90% of the area has been damaged or destroyed. And as Margaret Evans shows us, the devastation doesn't end there.
The wake of a storm with no mercy for those in its path. The fragile dwellings of so many ill-equipped to withstand its force. Cyclone Idai made landfall in Mozambique last week. The impact only now becoming clear as help starts to reach Beira, a city of 500,000 people. These rescue pictures were shot overnight. Figures emerging out of darkness like ghosts into the boats and arms of waiting rescue workers. Too few, says the country's president, Felipe Nyusi. He's asked for help from abroad. We have rescue equipment, volunteers, and doctors arriving now in Maputo, he say. Aid workers in the capital say reaching Beira by road is extremely difficult. 2 main routes cut off by the storm. Flights only resumed yesterday. Shanty towns along the coast have been especially hard hit, some completely submerged. I woke up because I felt like I was floating, says this 14-year-old, but my leg was actually in water. Hundreds of thousands are now in need.
There is a lot of houses underwater and people looking for support. People mentioned that it's possible to see some dead bodies around.
Zimbabwe, too, has felt the cyclone's touch. The sound of grief carried on the wind in Chimanimani as people start to bury their dead. Video taken by locals shows the power unleashed by the cyclone in the rivers, destroying homes and taking out entire sections of road. Just like Mozambique, it will complicate the rescue effort, and all in a part of the world that can ill afford more hardship. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Still ahead on tonight's National, Donald Trump never got his Moscow tower, but other developers sure did. Our Chris Brown takes us there.
And next, how social media is fueling the rise of hate in Canada.
Today, we're looking at 300 groups, thousands of adherents. It's grown exponentially. This is not just a little movement.
Hatta yeri geliyor. Ülkemizden
They are testing us from New Zealand, says the Turkish president. He has made the New Zealand mosque attacks into a political campaign speech, galvanizing his base with a fear of rising Islamophobia. At this rally on Saturday, he actually showed parts of the live-streamed mass murder along with the suspect's manifesto set to ominous music. It's now criminal to possess or share the video in New Zealand. The country has launched an inquiry into how, of course, these attacks could have happened. It's an impulse to say that what happened here in Christchurch is a shock, not at all representative of the real New Zealand. It's understandable to hear people say that, and many of them mentioned that the man accused of mass murder is in fact an Australian. The impression is that hate was imported. But is that actually accurate?
All those wrenching notes, all those "this is not us" sentiments are real. But there's also an uncomfortable question: what was missed? The terror suspect was not on watch lists in Australia or New Zealand, but he was active online with hate speech and seems to have connected with at least some New Zealanders. And New Zealanders have targeted mosques before in Christchurch, neo-Nazis showing up with pigs' heads, according to Paul Spoonley. He's been studying hate in New Zealand since the 80s, says white supremacy is on the rise.
And in the wake of the events, there are comments, unfortunately, which indicate support for his view, including from New Zealanders.
Certainly those grieving say they've been screaming about fears for a long time.
That the people in the mosque at Linwood have been surveilled for the last 20 years. Because the war on terror peddled Islamophobia and it normalized it.
Some of those still in pain are people who've been actively alerting authorities. Alia Dansaisen and others spent nearly a year fighting to get a group off Facebook that was claiming to be New Zealand-based. Its members boasted about burning Muslims in cages. They couldn't get them down.
My friend lost her son here. When I hugged her last night, one of the things that she said was that we tried to prevent this. We being she and I. And we've been met with ministers, we've met with agencies time and time again, and we'll see.
And then the warnings that went to police back in 2017. Pete Bradall took his concerns to cops about members of his gun club talking about mass shooters.
They were most definitely Islamophobic. When I informed the arms officer in person, I was basically told, oh, they're just a bunch of silly old duffers down there. That's how they are. Don't worry about them. They're fine. They've always been like that. Well, yeah, that's not okay.
The man who attacked those mosques was a member of that gun club. Bradall has met him, has a nagging feeling he might have been one of the big talkers.
I was alarmed by a great number of members, and there was one in particular that really, really scared me.
So now what? How seriously will concerns be taken? There are hints of change. A consortium of New Zealand advertisers, including telecoms and banks, have pulled their ads from Facebook, are suggesting a boycott after the live streaming of the video. And then there's the 18-year-old who appeared in that court, now the first person since 1977 charged with inciting racial hatred, accused of distributing the wretched video with posting a picture of the Al Noor Mosque with the words "Target acquired" emblazoned on it. He could go to jail for years. So there's some determination to act, but now the worst has already happened.
Rosie, when you talk with people here in New Zealand about inflammatory speech, they sometimes bring up Canadians. So there was a couple of Canadians last year who went on a speaking tour. They were talking about what they considered the scourge of immigration. They were saying things that were considered deeply Islamophobic. And there was such a protest about them that they were actually stopped from speaking at their venue in Auckland. People were really worried about it.
Okay, and so Canadians are exporting this brand of intolerance, Adrian, but it's also found a place here at home. As Joanna Remiliotis shows us, the New Zealand attacks triggered an immediate reaction from Canada's extreme right. Hard to watch and far too easy to find.
The insinuations are brazen and sickening. In this post, that a man carrying a red drink is behind the bloodstains on a mosque shooting survivor. In another, that a blood-stained carpet was rolled out as a prop. That these victims aren't really victims. In the far-right world of rhetoric, fake news is a facile way to deny the New Zealand attacks even happened. For those who track it all, it's incredibly frightening too.
The real danger is that the haters get stoked by this. They get motivated by this.
Bernie Farber is the head of the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. He says social media has helped fuel a startling rise in the number of extremist groups in Canada.
When I first began in the, let's say, the mid-1980s, we might have had 3 or 4 groups, large groups. Of that, maybe 50 to 100 adherents. Today, we're looking at 300 groups, thousands of adherents. It's grown exponentially. This is not just a little movement.
Here at home, the Quebec City mosque shooting. The Parliament Hill attack and likely the Toronto van attack are chilling markers, experts say, of lone wolves who are nurtured by communities that operate in the shadows of online extremism. And while many of the people supporting those acts may be dismissed as trolls, the whole point is it doesn't take more than one.
Let's say 1,000 of them are egging each other on through all kinds of different websites. Maybe that's good in that they're preoccupied, but of that, 3 or 4 of them may be extremely violent, and that's all it takes.
Horrific action is undeniable. Harder to track and to measure: intimidation.
That's him. Come on, I'm speaking to you. Come on.
Take this video. Members of a nationalist group calling themselves Thai's Canadian Infidels are heard challenging Muslim men outside an Edmonton mosque earlier this year. Then these images, captured on the mosque's security footage, triggering fear those same men were scoping the mosque. Ty Hunt, who leads the group, says he was just there to have a conversation about illegal migration and went inside the mosque, he says, because he needed to find a washroom. Hunt is also among those sharing those posts suggesting the New Zealand attacks are fake. He says his intent is to simply encourage questioning.
I'm a guy that likes to lead by example. I have 3 kids and I do the same thing. And leading by example is if you get something, you try and get the popular opinion of the people. So I post that stuff on, the whatever platform there is, though, Facebook, it happens to be here. And then I don't give my personal opinion on it because I don't have one.
Some of Hunt's followers are also part of the Yellow Vests, a group decrying everything from pipelines to illegal immigration. But while the messaging can be muddied, it is coming under increasing scrutiny. Canada's spy agency, CSIS, reopened its investigation of far-right extremism in 2017 because of the Quebec mosque shootings.
An increasing concern are groups of right-wing white supremacists.
Ottawa recently announced funding for new research into the groups. That will help monitor and identify risks and ultimately prosecute them. Former CSIS analyst Jessica Davis says that starts by calling far-right extremism terrorism.
So CSIS, of course, investigates threats to the security of Canada, including terrorism, and it doesn't investigate hate. So it's calling it terrorism is important from that perspective to make sure that those investigative agencies can use that. The other piece of it is very much about making sure that it's clear to any individuals who are looking at online propaganda or extremist material that this is unacceptable in Canada and meets the Canadian definition of terrorist propaganda or terrorist content.
Davis says Canada does have experience investigating online radicalization.
That's going to be a significant challenge, but it's also one that Canada has some experience doing because it's part of the work that had to be done around the Al-Qaeda or Islamic State inspired threat in Canada as well.
They want to strike terror.
For Farber, the fear of not acting quickly enough is the contagion effect.
My fear is that unless we find a way to get a handle on this, unless we find a way to bring this under control, we're going to see more of this. And I hate to say that. I've said it before. It's the last thing I want to see come true, but it's a dire warning.
And with that warning, the ever-growing challenge of figuring out when rhetoric is about to tip into something real. Joanna Rumeliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
Extremist groups are flourishing on social media, but they are also being shaped by it. Critics say social media platforms designed to keep you on and clicking can actually push people toward ever more extreme content. Joan Donovan is a scholar of technology, media, and the movements that manipulate them. She joins us from Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thanks for making the time, Joan. Given what you've done, the research you've done, give us a sense of how sites like Facebook and maybe more particularly YouTube sort of push people to the fringe and keep them there.
Yeah, so when we talk about how people use social media, we often talk about social networking. And so it shouldn't be a big surprise that different kinds of communities form. But one of the things that our research has been tracking over the last several years is how white nationalist groups and white supremacist groups are forming communities on different social media channels and becoming very, very tight-knit and also developing their own subcultures online.
Mm-hmm. And they have found ways, even as social media platforms try to keep them out, they have found ways around that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so they use a bunch of euphemisms. We've noticed that when a particular algorithm might be looking at different hate speech dictionaries and slur words, these groups, when they find out they're being monitored or moderated, will change the terminology. And so that's why it's important to pay attention to who are the main influencers in these groups and who is really setting the culture.
Is it fair to say that that these social media platforms actually can radicalize an individual or simply contribute to it? Or are they really pulling them into a rabbit hole where they just can't get out of?
It's really hard to break out of any of the social media algorithms once they profile you and set up a set of content that you really want to engage with. Unfortunately, because of the research that I do witness a lot of white supremacist content online, and I've seen different white supremacist recommendations show up in all manner of my social media in search as a result of just researching this. And so when I look for things that might be entertaining, I'm still caught in this web.
And so how do we stop it? I know you've talked about a quarantine on hate speech. What seems the most logical way to prevent this kind of thing from being dispersed?
Yeah, there's a few different ways that social media companies have approached trying to stem the tide of white supremacist content. And that includes deplatforming major influencers. It also includes removing content that is dehumanizing or harassment. And another way that my research suggests that we should look into is dampening the amplification networks online. That is to say, particularly in the attack in New Zealand, this manifesto was designed to go viral. And so we need to unpack how that worked and reverse engineer it so that we can stop the next one.
Okay, Joan Donovan, I really appreciate your perspective tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
The moment is still to come, but next, the Russian real estate project at the heart of the Mueller investigation. Chris Brown will be our guide.
It's rather high.
Yeah? A big high.
Yeah.
This could have been Donald Trump's tower.
This could, but it's not Donald Trump's tower.
We are live on The National following the latest in the growing controversy surrounding Alberta's United Conservative Party and its leader.
I think there's nothing unusual in two political campaigns communicating.
Documents leaked to the CBC show Kenny's leadership campaign coordinated with a fellow candidate during the party's 2017 leadership race. Now, a former UCP candidate is calling for a judicial inquiry. Kenny denies the allegations. Also today in Alberta, there was the throne speech. This is the last one before the province heads to the polls this spring.
We're taking action to fully reassure airlines and their passengers of the safety of the 737 MAX.
That's part of a statement released by Boeing tonight following two deadly crashes of its 737 MAX 8 and the grounding of the aircraft around the world. The CEO, Dennis Muhlenberg, said the company is cooperating with international regulators after the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines crashes, and said the software update and pilot training that was promised after the first crash is coming soon.
They're not really thinking about the students as much as they're thinking about money.
Students in Ontario voicing their displeasure with the province's planned increase to high school class sizes today. Hundreds of teachers say they're worried they'll lose their jobs following an announcement by the provincial government that the average class size will increase from 22 to 28 students. The government says no jobs will be cut because of the change. There are signs Special Counsel Robert Mueller is close to releasing that long-awaited report into allegations that Russian operatives and the Trump campaign colluded during the 2016 presidential election. There is a lot of speculation about what will be in it and even who'll get to see it. But we do know a lucrative real estate deal in Russia has been a central part of the investigation. After long denying it, Donald Trump admitted to pursuing a Trump Tower Moscow project while he was running for office.
Everybody knows about this deal. I wasn't trying to hide anything. When I run for president, that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to do business.
At the same time, according to U.S. intelligence agencies, the Russian government was working hard to boost Trump's chances of winning. Trump denies collusion, Russia denies meddling, and ultimately the deal did fall through. But other developers have pushed forward with their Moscow projects. Chris Brown takes us inside one particular building that could have been Trump's.
The Kremlin might be Moscow's most famous building, but it no longer dominates the skyline here like it did for centuries. In fact, if there's a new symbol for modern Russia, many would say it's this building, the 97-story Federation Tower. It's the centerpiece of a new commercial area called Moscow City, a few kilometers from Red Square. And this is where Donald Trump wanted to have his name in lights.
It's rather high.
A big high.
Yeah.
This could have been Donald Trump's tower.
This could, but it's not Donald Trump's tower.
We met Igor Bassanov, who once worked for giant Russian developer Mirax. He says his former boss negotiated with Trump to possibly turn this building into Trump Tower Moscow.
So we're now on 90th story.
He took us up to the top to tell us what he knows about why other developers got skyscrapers built here, but not Donald Trump.
I think that they've asked too much money.
For the brand?
For the brand, yeah, too much money from the landlord.
Bassanov has direct experience dealing with the Trumps himself. He worked with Donald Trump Jr. on a hotel project in Kiev.
He's a nice guy, you know? Very simple, very humble.
He says the Trump Corporation rarely owns the buildings it brands. Instead, it charges developers a fee to market and sometimes manage the property, presuming the Trump cachet will increase the property's value. But Bassanov says there were differences over how much the Trump name was worth in Russia.
If we are talking about the local or domestic tenants, it will be, I think, it will be nothing for them.
The financial crisis of 2008 ended those discussions after Mirax went bankrupt.
Welcome back to Miss Universe 2013, coming at you from Moscow.
In 2013, the economy had improved.
You had a lot of really beautiful girls.
And Trump was in Moscow for his Miss Universe pageant. Talk about a Trump tower surfaced again. Trump's Russia point man, Felix Sater, in an October 2015 email suggested, now all we need is Putin. The Kremlin says those talks never happened. Bassanov says everyone who does business in Russia knows having connections in government is crucial.
In Russia, big projects could be stopped by the government. You could be a very nice entrepreneur and start big projects and get finance from some bank, maybe not related to the government, but they've stopped you and you couldn't do anything.
In 2016, Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, wrote an email to the Kremlin promising that Vladimir Putin would get a $50 million penthouse if he helped. Bassanov says this part of the saga makes many Russians laugh.
It's a nice question because I think Vladimir Putin could get every apartment that he wants. So it's not some important point for him.
And look, at the very top, there's an enormous condo asking about $40 million and still on the market if Vladimir Putin wants it. By mid-2016, after Russia was unmasked as trying to interfere in the US election, the Trump Tower dream died yet again. But if Trump's asking price for his brand was too steep in the past, what about now?
It's a good idea to build another tower. I don't know whether he do some money, but it's possible.
Self-inflicted missteps, a global financial crisis, and a lack of a strong local partner likely doomed Donald Trump's ambitions in Moscow. But the controversy triggered by those efforts is a long way from being untangled. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
Just ahead, the Senate gets its close-up. A Broadcasting First provides our moment of the day.
When you see people reading their emails and looking at their iPad, and I'm a guilty party, but I'm in the corner so nobody sees me. But
something historic happened in the Senate today. Until now, only people who have visited the Red Chamber in person got to see what was happening. But now, that's all changed. For the first time, proceedings in the camera-shy Senate were televised, and a glimpse of that premier broadcast is our moment.
Even if our ratings are the highest, people could be listening.
Since they will be listening to us, we should be listening to each other. When you listen to those tapes and you see people reading their emails and looking at their iPad, and I'm a guilty party, but I'm in a corner so nobody sees me. In the House of Commons, they had whips coming to tell them after a few weeks. They gave us presentations saying, here is how embarrassing it is. And they presented tapes of people going in front of the person that was speaking, showing their better half on television. And so we have to learn. We have one chance to make a good impression. That's tonight.
So that's what the Senate looks like. I've never seen
well,
it before.
That's the new one. That's the new one, too. Yeah.
You know, this fear that, and this was a big fear senators had, right, Rosie, that having cameras in there would lead them to grandstand and they would disrupt the solemn importance of the Senate. I think that'll be outweighed, even if it happens by the millions of people who will now watch the Senate proceedings.
Listen, I know a lot of senators, and they were nervous about that. But I think that because they are not elected, this is a really important moment for them. It opens up the second chamber, and people will be able to see if they work and how they work, and it's about transparency. That's a good thing. More people 100%. To compete with us on TV, too. That's The National for this Monday, March 18th. Good night.
Good night.